Hello and welcome to this edition of the 2X Enterprise Automation Power Room series. This series brings together business leaders to discuss current challenges and consider technology solutions that can help improve business outcomes such as workforce productivity, faster time to value, accelerating innovation, and scale and growth in endless ways, thus shaping the 2X enterprise down the road. Today, we will focus on platform to implementation, best practices adopted by companies that have scaled RPA through two sessions. The first session on our agenda today will help you understand how a cohesive automation platform can offer an integrated delivery model backed by some great use cases and lessons learned from the ground. The second one is a panel discussion where our panel members will talk about how enterprises can scale their RPA programs and talk about some of the best practices followed. You could post your questions that you may have, any questions that you may have in the chat window, and we will take them up in the end. Let's get started with the first session of the day by Shrikant Dio, who is Associate Director and Lead Product Management at Edgewolf. Over to you, Shrikant.
Thank you, Sneha. I hope I'm audible clearly. So as Sneha mentioned, the first session that I will conduct today is about the platform to implementation. What are the best practices that are adopted by companies that have scaled RPA? Okay, but before I get into that, let me first, in a way, sort of introducing ourselves. So we are from Edgewolf. I'm from Edgewolf. I represent a product called AssistEdge. And we have been into this process automation industry even before it was called the RPA, or the robotic process automation. And what has propelled our strategic thinking in this automation space throughout our journey is that it's our first is our very strong belief that automation is actually enabling a completely different future, what we prefer to call it as a hybrid workforce, which is a combination of human and digital workers together. But that workforce is going to drive, and it is already driving, business resilience and reliability. Okay, and I'm going to talk about a couple of examples where it has actually made a significant difference in the business being able to provide resiliency and being able to depend on these digital workers for reliability, especially during these difficult COVID times that everybody faced. And last but not the least, our also one of the strong belief is about centrality of the data, and the fact that how data can actually uh, drive all of these automations, transformation sort of initiatives in the enterprise world. To deliver on this, as we have actually crafted a comprehensive platform strategy. While many of the vendors have always focused primarily on the automation side, or the automate side, essentially just executing the automation, we have always looked at a much broader scale, and which is why we have also focused on the pre-automation discovery aspect of it, which is the scientific approach and empirical data-based approach to identifying automation candidates. But we have also focused on the post-automation orchestration part of it, which is about how the bots or the digital workers and the human workers can collaborate to actually execute the end-to-end process. And what this means for us on the ground is that our strategy consists of three layers. One is about the core offerings that we provide to the market, and those again are pretty broad in nature instead of just focusing on the automation side. As I mentioned, we have offerings which are focusing on the discover side of the business, which is about process discovery. And then even within the automations, we have the entire gamut of automation, which is the unattended, attended, and then a unique offering which is called enterprise personal assistant, which is the role-based automation. And also on the customer contact center side, which is the agent automation. And finally, to complete the story around the automation, we also have a very important offering in the complex document processing to convert this unstructured data into structured data that can be processed. All of this obviously is built on a very strong pillar of artificial intelligence, which drives intelligence throughout each of these offerings. And while we understand that each of these offerings can deliver their own value, we have gone ahead one step ahead and make it very contextual for the clients by building industry and process centric offerings, which are a combination of one or more such of our product offerings, but it essentially creates a unique sort of ready-made solutions for our clients. And just to give an example, we have recently created an payable solution, okay, which combines the power of unattended, attended automation, machine learning, and complex document processing, which delivers a ready-made sort of solution for the accounts payable function. And all of these offerings and solutions are based on the enablers, as we call it, which are the marketplace, the academy, which helps training and enablement, the community edition, the collaboration hub, and a cloud platform. So while yes, the platform does provide a lot of capabilities for our enterprise clients to look not just at pure automation execution, but also end-to-end their automation journey. But we also realized that our clients and any enterprises, when they start their automation journey, they cannot do that with just a platform. Okay, they need a vendor, they need a partner who can actually handhold them during the automation journey. And which is why, in addition to the mature product and platform, which is already deployed in over 300 plus or 350 plus enterprise clients, we also bring in a deep professional expertise with more than 500 experts, automation and AI experts, which help clients in realizing the value from automation. And that has been our core focus as Edgewolf, as a vendor. This is complemented by a very robust and mature capabilities in infrastructure and governance. And also, because of our parentage, which is Infosys, we obviously bring a very deep domain and functional knowledge to the board when it comes to executing automation journey. And as a combination of this, we provide end-to-end automation lifecycle management as a service to our clients. And that's our core sort of value proposition. Just to give few examples how we do that, and sort of going back to our topic of what are the best practices that usually what clients see or need when they have to really realize the true potential from their automation, is that what we bring into the table is a variety of different capabilities and services combinations. So, for example, most of our engagements are supported by customer success teams, a hypercare product support, a unique consulting sort of arrangement to help clients build their automation center of excellence, also help them in doing process consulting to identify not just automation candidates, but sometimes even go beyond automation to really re-engineer and transform the processes before the automation can be picked up. In addition to that, we have also realized that the clients need flexible and innovative commercial models. Okay, because automation is while it had a very clear business case in most of the cases, the clients have unique needs. Sometimes the clients prefer a sort of a capex based model versus opex based model when it comes to automation. Sometimes the clients want to first see the value before they really start paying for automation. So we bring in very unique, flexible, and innovative commercial models, including an outcome-based model, which means that some of our clients actually pay us only when they realize the value from the automation. Okay, and all of this is possible because we are able to work with our clients throughout their automation journey. Okay, we are not a sort of a pure play product vendor who just comes and sells the platform and goes away. We actually work with our clients in do the sort of art of possible workshops, provide a proof of value to ensure that the client understand where and how they can actually get the value from automation. And that way we engage our clients throughout the journey to ensure that whether it is platform, whether it is services, whether it is consulting, the client gets all what they need to realize value from their automation under one single roof. Okay. So just to give example, and which I mentioned earlier, on how some of our clients have really realized the value. Okay, and that is what really drives the scale of automation, but also goes beyond the scaling of automation to really see different aspects of how the value from automation can be looked at. Okay, because typically whenever people talk about automation or RPA, they only sort of look at operational cost reduction as the only value lever. And of course that we have done, and we have lots of case studies to talk about. One of the most important case study that we really love talking about is one of our European health tech manufacturer who have realized over $13 million of actual operational cost savings by automating pretty complex finance and accounting processes. But this is also a case study of resilience that I mentioned at the beginning. This client, when they automated most of their F&A processes, luckily they completed automation just before the COVID hit. Okay? And when the COVID hit, naturally, as most of you know, it impacted operations really significantly. But because of the automations that this client had already done, they were able to continue their critical finance, accounting, and even compliance, especially revenue compliance related operations, without any disturbance. Okay, the bots continued to work without any challenge, and that really helped them maintain their uh, business and operational resilience to a significant extent. But interestingly, as I mentioned, value is not just about operational cost reduction. So, for example, one of our retail customers actually automated a spot bidding process where they had to sort of bid for a particular spot, and just by doing that, they increased their top line revenues by more than a $2 million in a month. Okay, another example where one of our uh, uh, logistical client, a shipping giant, they harmonized their sales process. Okay, by and of course they reduced the AHT and drove SLA achievement. But what they also achieved was that they were able to actually start giving the container booking sort of sales process back to the customers, so that the whole cycle time of the booking to the delivery could be significantly reduced. And again, they actually saw quite a significant increase in their top line. Okay, of course they saw an increase in the bottom line as well. Another very unique example is one of our telco customers, who actually, while they of course achieved the necessary or the expected cost reduction, but they also saw, because they implemented automation in the contact center, they actually saw a increase in the net promoter score or net promoter uh, uh, satisfaction by their customers by over 8%. Okay, so essentially what happened was, because the contact center agents were much more efficient, much more sort of productive because of the automations, those contact center agents were able to focus more on the customer problems and on the customer call, rather than having to deal with multiple systems. And that increased the customer satisfaction. And last but not the least, again, very interesting case study is that one of our customers in the entertainment sector, they actually automated the process of releasing new music albums. Okay, and this again saved, of course, the efforts and cost, but it also improved their visibility in the market, which actually is now helping them in the overall competitive landscape in their industry. So the point I'm trying to make with all these examples and case studies is that when you have the right platform and right partner in your automation journey, what it helps you is that it not only helps you scale your automation journey and of course realize the cost reduction or effort reduction targets that you may have set for yourself when you started your RPA journey, it actually can open up doors for very interesting new benefits that can actually be realized from the automation. And those benefits are essentially a, a, a sort of a follow-on benefits. Once the processes are automated, that it improves the productivity, it improves the resilience of the process, and there you start seeing some of the very unique, as I mentioned, some top line benefits, some customer satisfaction benefits, or some competitive benefits for you in the market. So, which is why we strongly believe that it's extremely important for all of the enterprises who are looking at automation to not just look at automation as a tactical operational sort of project, but actually look at it at much bigger scale. And there are many case studies that I will probably just skim through. This is one of the health tech manufacturers that I talked about, and as I mentioned, all of these clients have primarily been looking at automation as a strategic initiative, okay, rather than just looking at a tactical initiative, and which is why they have scaled. Of course, they have scaled not only in terms of the number of bots. For example, the health tech manufacturer that I talked about today has close to about 1,000 plus bots actively working, and this is just in the finance and accounting domain. Okay, recently they have started exploring other business functions like HR and procurement as well. But just in finance and accounting today, they have 1,000 plus bots. But it is not about bots. Okay, when we talk about scale, as a practitioners in this space, we don't believe that scale necessarily means the number of bots that you have. Scale in our mind means multiple aspects. It could mean complexity, as in that shipping giant example that I talked about. There, the one order booking process that we automated has more than 278 individual steps. Okay, that one single task that we automated. Okay, similarly, the telco example that I talked about, where we automated the contact center operations and provided a single dashboard to their agents, it fetches data from more than 40 applications. Okay, so it's the scale is not just about how many bots you have, it is also about how complex processes have been automated. And to do that, you not only need pure play RPA capabilities, you also need to expand into artificial intelligence, machine learning, and very importantly, into the document processing, because most of these processes will usually involve some amount of unstructured data, which needs to be converted into structured data before you can really automate the rest of the part. So the bottom line is that when it comes to scaling automation, you need two things. You need a platform that can help you do all kinds of automations, okay, whether it is attended, unattended, intelligent automations, role-based automations, testing automation, all of that under a single umbrella, okay, so that you don't have to really go and buy different tools or different components for the same for different kinds of automation. But you also need a platform that can help you in your end-to-end automation journey, okay, right from, as I said, discovery to different kinds of automation to the process orchestration, which is about combining the power of human and digital workers together, which requires some unique capabilities, by the way. And that's what we have built in Assist. For example, we have built a human interface so that the humans can work with the bots. The bots can throw out exceptions that humans can handle, or humans can take decisions where the bots are not able to take decisions. So we have built those human interfaces. We have also built process orchestrators that allow multiple steps, some done by bots, some done by humans, to be combined into a single process. So many of these capabilities are required for you to combine your end-to-end processes. And plus, what you also need is a partner, okay, not a vendor, but a partner who can stay with you in your entire automation journey and ensure that you realize the value from your automation. Okay, don't just leave you with some product that you have bought, and then you have to figure out on your own which processes to automate and how to automate. But you need a partner who will stay with you end to end. Okay? With that, I will take a pause, and I will hand over to Sneha back. Yeah.
Shrikant, it was indeed insightful to learn that scaling automation is not only about the number of bots, but also about how we integrate AI and ML and document processing capabilities and bring in an integrated RPA and automation platform into the scene. We'll now get started with the panel discussion. Our first panel member is Srini Raghavan, former VP of Supply Chain and Procurement at iWing-based Prime Source Building Products, and Annie Valet, who is the partner responsible for AI and automation at PwC. And this panel will be moderated by Shrikant Dio, Associate Director and Lead Product Management at Edgeworths. Once again, please do remember to post any questions that you may have in the chat window, and we will take them up in the end. Over to all of you.
Sure. Thanks, Neha, and welcome Srini and Annie to this panel.
Thank you, Shrikant. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Sure. So Srini, I will start with you with a very basic question. I'm saying it's basic because the answer might be very obvious. So how important is automation for your organization? And is it related to a larger digital transformation, or do you look at it as a standalone initiative?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Shrikant. Automation, I think, is as obviously, it's extremely important for any organization today, right? What we are witnessing in the global economy is, I would say, unprecedented, right? You have chip shortages on one side, and then you have vessel space shortages on the other side. So the complete breadth of the economy is suffering shortages, right? And at the same time, if you look at the talent market, there is a huge gap right now, right? Meaning you need workers to come in and do stuff, whereas finding good, solid workforce in this COVID environment is proving to be a challenge, right? So that obviously leads to a gap, right? So you're in a situation, or most organizations are in a situation where they have to do more with less. And that is the perfect case for automation, right? So I would say automation is extremely essential for every organization. It is, and if anything else, the COVID dynamic has only propagated that and made it easier to go through the ROI case for an automation. And again, to answer the second part of your question, I would say that automation could be the start of your digital journey, but it has to be built in the broader context of things, right? So one could start with automation, one could start with a bot, but then the vision has to be there to scale it up and then make it part of a bigger digital transformation for the whole organization.
Thanks, Srini. That's quite insightful. So let me just take that thread a little bit ahead, Srini. I know you have started on your automation journey, but I would want you to talk about a little bit about your automation journey, and especially about any key lessons that you could share with the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say there are three key lessons learned, right? The first one, right? I will go back to the culture. The culture of the organization has to be set from the top, right? And what does that mean? The C-level has to buy in to the automation case or the case study for the automation, right? And in today's world, it's not that difficult to get buy-in from them. Making an ROI case for automation is probably the easiest it has been in a long time. So position it, get the buy-in, position it as a helpful attendant, and or a way to increase the efficiency, right? Once you do that, right, you can get the C-level buy-in, right? Once the C-level buy-in is there, then the message comes from the top that, hey, the organization is going to go on this transformational journey, and hence, all the roadblocks, all the processes, everything needs to be reviewed so that this initiative can take off and be successful. The second piece of learning that I would offer is keep the goals small, right? When you start on your journey, you want to get easy wins first, right? So look at the real manual tasks, the low-hanging fruit, if you will. Try to get those automated, and that will get you some success. And as they say, success breeds more success, right? So that would be lesson number 2. Lesson number 3 is, as you enter into automation, just don't try to boil the ocean, right? Even if you are developing 1 or 2 case studies, what I would say is that try to automate 70% of it, 80% of it, so that the organization can ease into that change. And I think that's critical because, again, success breeds more success. So we want to have some easy wins. So again, in summary, what I would say is get the buy-in at the C-level, set the culture from the top, and go for small wins first. That would be my lessons learned.
Wonderful, Srini. That's really nice. So let me come to you, Annie. You consult a lot of clients on automation. And let me ask a question that I asked Srini at the beginning. Do you believe that clients that you consult are really looking at automation as strategic programs, or it is still being looked at as a more tactical investments?
We see a mix of both, honestly. Some organizations are kind of looking to dip their toe. They understand it's going to be important, but they want to start with a few pilots, which is not a bad idea. As Srini mentioned, having some wins, taking the time with 2 or 3 processes that you automate or partially automate to get to learn more about this technology and what it can do, and the excitement the team members can really have in working hand in hand with that. That's certainly still a very positive way to start looking at this technology, but it's definitely more tactical. For others, they certainly understand that this needs to be linked with the executive vision and where this organization needs to go, and start addressing some of the more fundamental challenges that you touched on, Shrikant, in your section, like shortage of people that can fill some of the roles, potentially even the stickiness of the people being excited about doing the work that they're doing today. Preparing data for finance specialists is not the part that they love about their work. Usually it's more the analysis and trying to find some efficiencies and things like that. So how can we use automation more from a strategic perspective? So that's certainly an angle that we're seeing more and more, and that I'm certainly excited to see. But to me, there's no wrong way to start the journey. As long as you're starting, you're educating your team members. And for us, it's always about that knowledge transfer more than anything, right? Like just sending us a request or a design on our side, PwC would be building the bot and just sending it over. The return on that investment is so much less than if they take the time to really embrace it and learn it, and apply it more and more widely. And when we're talking about scaling, that's what we need, right? We need more people to understand it, more people to embrace it, and get a lot of hands-on to these solutions. Like even at PwC Canada, it's for our own operations, we use a lot of it, and everybody got trained on automation tools, and we're expecting even all of our accountants to use automation as a tool in their toolkit when they're doing their day-to-day work, right? So, and that came with time and with excitement and sharing those success stories. So both angles we're seeing, and both are very valid ways of starting. And the more the excitement comes, I think that strategic angle is going to expand.
That's good to know, Annie. So do you see any change happening because of COVID in the last 1.5 years? Has this approach towards automation, has it changed either again on a short term or a more strategic way?
It has accelerated, right? Like I think it's luckily enough, it was a technology that had been embraced and tested across the world, across all industries and organizations for comfort to be there. So when the need became extreme with the new way of working and everybody having to be off site and things like that, everybody felt very comfortable in using this technology, more, I would say, more so than like some of the more advanced AI specific tools that are still available, but that were probably a little bit more scary than the variety of automation techniques that we have known and tested for the past few years. So that appetite was also different in the sense that instead of just being those large organizations coming to us and wanting to start their journey, we're looking at medium and smaller sized businesses that needed to find new ways of working, and that having just their 10 people team on site kind of working together wasn't going to cut it anymore. So that's where I saw the newer demands that I wasn't seeing as much in the years prior. So
yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, Anya, and that is exactly what our sort of sense from the ground is. As I mentioned, one of our key case study that I talked about is one of our health tech manufacturer, and because luckily they had already scaled their automation in the F&A segment, when they actually hit the COVID sort of disruption, they were able to sort of get over it quite easily. Okay, in fact, it was so much sort of evident that it went all the way to the board. Okay, and it was presented as one of the very successful sort of initiative to the board that it actually helped us during the COVID time. So yeah, I think it has definitely changed the perception now.
That's fantastic. And specifically health processes, right? Whether it's processing information coming in from COVID testing results in certain provinces that got automated, the supply chain to try to speed up where we could the materials required for the hospitals and for the healthcare professionals. So all things like that are also another area that got where automation got incorporated and had a significant impact in the speed at which the citizens could get the services that they truly required in this time. So,
yeah, thanks, Annie. So let me put the next question more about the topic of the day, which is about scaling RPA, and I will put the question to both of you. Maybe Srini, you can maybe take a first shot. Is about how important is the scaling? That's one part of the question. But second, in my mind, which is more important, is how do you define scale? Okay, in your mind, what does scale in RPA mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that scaling is extremely important, right? So you could, I'll borrow the phrase from Annie, you start dipping the toe, and let's say you do a couple of cases in procurement or supply chain, right? And then you find success with that. Now we want to do a couple of cases in finance. As we get more and more successful on this journey, what really happens is that's when the scale really comes together, right? So scaling is absolutely important because every department would realize the value that automation is bringing, right? If you take it in a regional context, again, going back to dipping the toe, some of these concepts could be piloted in the US or in Europe, for example, right? And then if the bulk of the sales or the bulk of the revenue or the bulk of the transactions are done in Asia, for example, right? Then that's scaling, that's geographic scaling, where that's where you really get the ROI, right? You scale it out to Asia, scale it out to the whole organization, and bring the whole organization under one umbrella. So bottom line is, yes, scaling is absolutely important, and I think that's where rubber hits the road. That's where you get your ROI, right? Now, to answer your second question in terms of how you define scaling, there's two ways primarily in my mind, right? One is you could say depth, and one you could say breadth. And what you mean by depth is, for example, let's take procurement, right? Within procurement organization, you start with automating POs, for example, right? Today you do that. 24 months later, 36 months later, how many processes within procurement have you automated, right? That shows the penetration or the depth into the organization or into that function per se, right? So that's one way to do it. The breadth is across departments, right? So there are a lot of common processes between, say, supply chain and finance, right? So how do you cross those silos? How do you break across those silos and build a common bot or a common process that rolls across multiple functions? So that is breadth. And both are equally important. It depends on how the organization is structured, what their appetite is, how the leadership is structured, to enable either or. But I think there is value in eventually getting to both of them.
Thanks, Srini. Annie, your views around the definition of scale?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with Srini. I like the visual of the depth and the breadth. I'll add a little angle to this for us. When I look at it, there's also the technical scale that you're going to do, like how many processes are you actually touching? Where's this technique, these techniques and this technology being integrated in? But it's also on the people, right? How many people in the organization understand when and how to use these techniques, when and how to do it themselves. So when we're talking really about citizen-led automation, where more and more people are trained to do it themselves, and ways of even sharing amongst the whole community of employees now using this technique as if it was an Excel or a Word document or a PowerPoint, right? Like, so when we get to that level of not only expanding where the technology is being incorporated, but also everybody being on board with this journey and understanding, I think that's where we're really starting to feel the scale, the true scale. I touched on it, the fact that, for us, specifically for our own organization, we have been upskilling absolutely everyone. And now the challenge that brought upon is like, oh my God, we have all these great ideas, these people with a ton of appetite to apply these techniques in their day-to-day, whether it's to enter their timesheet or download a report that they like to see every morning or things like that. They can be very simple automation, but they have an impact on their day-to-day, and they get excited about building these things and getting some credit for it. So we had to come up with then mechanisms on sharing and building that community, and what kind of marketplace, if you will, can we put out there so that we don't end up with 25 different versions of the same bot, but we have one, and then we get to all use it as a community. So that people and technology is another way of looking at, again, how broad and how deep are you going? It's a level or a degree of scaling as well in my definition.
That's quite interesting, Annie, and as I mentioned, that's one of the challenges that we have also seen quite often in our clients. What is typically referred in analyst community as a democratization of the automation. So one of the things that we are doing from our side is we have actually created something called as an enterprise personal assistant, which is exactly solving the kind of asks that you have mentioned. One is that you want people to do more and more automation themselves, but at the same time you also want some sort of control, some sort of central control to ensure that it doesn't become too rampant and sort of creates challenges. So this enterprise personal assistant is a kind of a combination of personal assistant, which is essentially a bot for every employee, but it is also role based. Okay, so for example, you talked about accountant. So what this can do is it can actually go and look at what an accountant do as a role, basically, not as a person, but as a role, what those people do, and take out some of the manual, repetitive kind of work. For example, filling in Excel reports and things like that, and actually provide simple bots to do those tasks. Okay, and those could be centrally configured so that you don't end up making too many copies, or also ensure compliance. Okay, that's also one of the key aspects in most of the enterprises, right? So it does that, the enterprise control as well as the personal part of it. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think democratization of the automation is very important in a long-term scale. Okay, it may not help you in immediate term because you may have some obvious case studies or use cases to implement, but beyond the point, once you dry up that pipeline, this democratization will really help you get more and more ideas.
Absolutely, that's great.
Thanks. So now that we have talked about what the scale means, so let's get to the obvious question that, okay, how to scale. Okay, so what are the key sort of attributes that you see that will help in the scale, but at the same time also on the other side, what are the key roadblocks that you see? So Annie, you want to go first on the experience that you have with your clients?
Sure. So I can maybe continue. I'll start with the people angle, right? I mentioned the idea of upskilling. So need to come up with a plan if you want to expand that scale from the number of people that are using and applying the automation techniques. You need to have a journey that I think, again, is more than just an online training that shows you where to click in the tool to automate it. What we've learned and what's been very useful, and you touched on it as well, is like being role-based, right? Like if we're training for us, the audit practice, we came up with use cases that we're going to speak with them, that they could leave the training and start applying right away. Similarly with our tax professionals or with our consulting professionals, depending on who we're talking to, we're adapting and bringing really the tools to life through use cases. So that upskilling is going to be an important aspect. And then also the ability to then have processes that allow that collaboration. I touched on the technical aspect of like, is there a marketplace potentially that you want people to be able to share it? But who also is the group that can help validate before it goes and be shared across the whole organization? We ended up having to create or wanting to create a team that does the curation. Right. And when they're doing the curation, again, for us, the upskilling is so important that it's not a group that you send your idea and your rough draft of a bot and they fix it for you. It's they'll review it, come back to you with some recommendations and coach you if need be, but you're going to update your own bot for it to be to the standards that we're looking for to be able to share it across the organization. So yeah, the tools, you need the tools, you need to upskill some people, and then you need to have processes in place so that you maintain a level of stability and governance with this scaled version of, okay, we're going to apply a lot more automation to a lot of different areas in our organization. How do we govern all of that, right? So it's definitely feasible. It's just something that needs to be thought through, and that can become, more easily detracted if the processes weren't in place to begin with, because you have a lot of people doing a lot of things all at once. So those for me are kind of the lessons learned from our journey and things to consider.
Sure. Thanks, Annie. That's quite valuable. Srini, you want to take a shot at basically what are the key things that you believe will help you scale?
Yes. So I'll pick up on the culture aspect of it, right? So what I mean by that is when you scale across departments, right, that interdepartmental collaboration has to be there, right? And as you scale that, along with that comes the infrastructure need, and hence, basically a lot of coordination has to be done with multiple departments, including IT, to be successful in that scale up, right?
Yeah.
So having said that, who sets the tone, or how is the tone set, right? Again, it has to come from the top. The whole organization, all the departments have to be open, receptive to this whole process of change, this whole process of digitization. So I would say that is the key, right? Or at least one of the keys to scaling. If you look at the point number 2 is, if you look at the market today, right, in terms of scaling automation or just overall automation in general, there are so many vendors, I would call them. But what a company or an organization needs is a partner, right? You mentioned in your talk about how Edgeworth, and then that's what I have found Edgeworth to be, is how do you find the right partner who can help you break these silos and then suggest like a common platform or common business processes across the whole enterprise, right? So that way, they have the capability of dealing with multiple ERP systems or multiple applications, whatever that might be. So finding that one partner who can lead you on this journey is key in my mind. So again, to summarize, I think interdepartmental collaboration and the leadership, setting the tone from the top, and then the right choice of a partner to walk on this journey with you. I think those are 2 key things in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely, Srini. And we are really delighted to be your partner in scaling automation. So coming to the challenges, both of you mentioned that culture change management is one of the biggest challenge. But on the ground, we have also seen that many of our clients on the ground, we have seen that they reach a point uh, which are essentially the use cases that they have identified, and beyond that, they actually hit a sort of almost like a roadblock because they don't know what to automate next. Is that your experience also? Is that a big roadblock, that not having enough pipeline of use cases?
Annie, do you want to take that?
Sure, I can start. So it's for some organizations, it certainly happens, and that's why I was mentioning. The more you can up knowledge, at least the organization on how they can apply automation, you'll get the ideas flowing, and you'll be able to build that pipeline a lot more easily. How we've countered or tried to kind of accelerate that idea generation in organization, we created these little SWAT teams, right? Like, and that would go and present one team at a time, where it was kind of a half session of here's what it is, here's some bots in action, here's what it can do. Now let's take the second half of these sessions to brainstorm together and how you can apply it. So we're coming back from that time with each of the teams with concrete ideas. So there's certainly techniques that you can use to build that pipeline and create that that journey. But my recommendation, again, for those who are maybe struggling with the ideas, is definitely not to go the route of we're going to throw it over the fence and there's going to be a team of people just doing the automation and sending you back the bot. If this is an organization that has a huge backlog and they have all kinds of ideas and you're trying to accelerate it, you could have that kind of factory building team. But for those who are still scratching their head a little bit, I would say get them involved, get everybody involved in that application, and the ideas will come, right? I've never seen one that, after applying these techniques couldn't come up with a pipeline of ideas. It's really more around education and an understanding than I can't remember who of you mentioned this, but I think it's usually like you can do partial automation. It's not like you have to pick a process that you're going to automate end to end. So that's also in the education, right? As soon as team members or employees start understanding that, then they're much more willing to say like, oh, I know you can't automate all of this process, but maybe if you could do the data prep for me, that would be great. Or maybe if you could do the validation for me, that'd be great. And that's how it starts as well. Because it can be overwhelming for those who don't understand the techniques, and we're trying to ask them to pick a process. Like, but I'm super important in all the processes that I work in, right? So that partial automation can be another great way to, again, get the excitement going.
Absolutely. Srini, have you faced this challenge?
Yes, and I think it's a great challenge to face, because what it tells me is that the organization is thinking, right, and everybody is marching to the same tune and everybody wants to digitize. So that's point number one. And then point number two is they're pouring in ideas, we are getting traction, we are getting success. So I think overall, I think it's a great problem to have. And usually my feel has been you get to this point somewhere 24 to 36 months after you start with that first bot, right? And this is a journey, as we said, right? So if you start with one bot, then you build multiple bots. At a certain point of time, now you're truly in that digital transformation space, right? And when you're crossing applications, when you're doing these, or what is the next big rock to climb, or what is the next big mountain to climb, you are really, that's a 6-month-long project or something like that. And where I'm going with that is you really need a partner to stimulate your thinking on that and purify your thinking on that. So you can use techniques like, Annie mentioned SWOT, or we use Kanban or something like that, those workshops along with the partner to refine your thinking. But then I think it is also the right time and place to take the next step to go away from bots and more into machine learning, artificial intelligence, attended automation, and your EPA that you mentioned, right? So I think that's when, that graduation is going to happen. And that's it's a great problem to have, like I said, and I think that's the next step in that evolution or journey, if you will.
Sure. Thanks, Srini. So let me ask the question purely from as a product guy. in your experience, Srini and Annie, have you felt that okay, the RPA products that are out in the market, and I'm being sort of unbiased here, any RPA product in the market, if you really wanted to scale, if the RPA product should have this capability, okay, which you don't see today. Is there any one or two capabilities that you would want to sort of call out?
From my perspective, I think where we started our automation journey, it was just powered by some individuals trying to get some bots and put some ideas, some use cases together and grow it. Obviously, the market has grown. There has been a lot of consolidation, and again, I think the market is headed, the vendor market is headed in the right direction. The couple of things that I look for, right, is versatility, right, because we talked about scale again and again, and that is the key. And what does versatility mean? Versatility means the capability of the platform and the capability of your partner to scale across numerous applications, bring in the best-in-class business ideas, and even including infrastructure solutions, and then business propositions like you mentioned, right? Because on some of those cases, some of those use cases, the ROI could become long, right, or could become tricky, right? Whatever that might be. How do you bring in the best-in-class ideas? How do you bring in versatile ideas, scalable ideas, right? Both from a platform perspective and from a solution provider perspective. So those are two things that I think, at least personally, that I'm looking for whenever I engage with somebody.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good input, Srini.
Yeah.
Annie, your thoughts?
Yeah, a few technical things we're looking for. Definitely the ability to have both the attended and unattended bots. That helps, with the flexibility and being able to scale and make it available to more people. The ability to use more advanced techniques clearly is going to be important when it comes to, being able to use OCRs, optical character recognition, and even embed some machine learning, whether they have it within the tool or not. The ability to interact with more advanced techniques is super important, or else at some point you're going to get blocked, right? And you want to continue to apply a variety of techniques, but you're stuck with kind of what's in the package. So that flexibility on also the techniques you can apply is really important. And then any they're not necessarily must-haves, but they're nice-to-haves. So any area where, again, the collaboration and the community or anything along those lines that can help is a nice-to-have. So that sharing functionality is certainly something that can ease the scaling as organization are applying the techniques at a broader scale, but not having to pull in multiple tools. When we try to apply different techniques, for me, that's the number one. So at least all talking the same language, using the same package is really, really important.
Absolutely. I think that's quite valid and good. Valid ask to have. So I already see some questions coming up. It's been a fantastic discussion. So let me give a couple of minutes to both of you to just give a concluding remark, any final thought that you want to leave with the audience. Srini, you want to go first?
Sure, absolutely. Just a couple of thoughts. One is it is a journey, right? So pick the right partner, scalable, flexible, versatile, whatever word you want to use for that. Just pick the right partner who can get you from start and kind of handhold you all the way. So that's the key in my mind, is point number one. Point number two is more inward looking. Get the organization, get the leadership in tune, set the culture from the top that, A, this is a journey, B, this is a journey for improvement. So it's going to take a while. There are going to be some wins and losses, some puts and takes, but we're going to be successful with this, right? So those are the two key points, if you will, for somebody embarking new on this journey.
Fantastic.
And Annie? I would just add, I touched a lot on the people aspect, but having the right partner is absolutely important. I love the fact that this is recognized to really speed things up and start with lessons learned from many others from the get-go, but embrace it, right? Take that knowledge, upskill yourselves, upskill your teams, really try to learn. These are techniques that are very accessible for everyone. you may not go into the very advanced, but at least understanding what all of these techniques can do for you and your organization is super important. So include some time and effort in that learning and not just in the applying of the tech. So that would be the main thing I'd like to add, and to encourage everyone to save that time to upskill and learn as you're applying the technology.
Fantastic. That's really good insights coming from both of you, Srini and Annie. And thanks a lot for all of that. So I already see some questions coming up. Carries, Sneha, how do we want to run this?
Okay, so with three thought leaders in automation discussing this topic, we've already touched upon several areas, the breadth and scale of automation, how to scale, the challenges we face, etc. So in the interest of time, let me take a couple of questions from our audience, and the rest of them we will reach out to you with further information. So the first question, and maybe Shrikant, you could get started and then pass over the baton. While companies are using process discovery to strategically scale up automation, many companies are also using discovery to identify opportunities for process improvement and re-engineering to drive compliance. What is your view, and what are you seeing in the market?
Yeah, Sneha, I mean, we run a Discover tool. We actually were the pioneers in the process discovery. So when we entered this market with a tool called Assisted Discover, our view was much broader. Obviously, we wanted this technology to be used by enterprises in much more than automation, and we do believe that it can be used. However, at the same time, we also see to be actual, realistic, and on the ground. We also see that this technology is being used for an immediate sort of short-term targets of achieving automation. Okay, and as I said, many of our clients have faced this roadblock that they have reached a point where they have run out of the ideas to automate. And as Annie mentioned, one of the way to do it is to democratize that. But the other way is what we have also suggested and implemented in many clients, is to run tools like process discovery to actually gather a lot of ideas to find out where the inefficiencies are, where the potential for automation is, and then convert them into actual automations. So yeah, I mean, right now it is primarily being driven by automation, but we also see many of these implementations where we have done process discovery. It actually throws up very interesting sort of insights around the inefficiencies in the processes as well. So yes, the clients look at them, they actually consider that as one of the factors, and they would probably take up in the future when they are ready to do a broader process transformations.
Sure. Srini, Annie, any thoughts at all?
I could add that, from what I've been seeing, it's not a necessary first step, but it is a nice to have. We always try, when we're about to do some automation or integrate some automation in a process, to look at the process holistically, to first decide, is there any improvements we should do to the process before we start automating it? Like an example I can give is, we've worked with a lot of organizations where one of the first steps was, reading data from a form, and then we realized it had 10 different versions of the form when they were all pretty much the same except for a few. So we do some rationalization of the process before we moved into the automation. So that's just one example, and we'll do it with or without the process mining before. But what the process mining will give you is maybe a few other hints that, okay, I'm going to integrate automation, yes, but let me do this or this first steps first. And then you're going to have a kind of the double impact of the efficiencies you can gain. So yes, it's a nice to have. And if you do have it and your organization has applied it, look at that data, use that analytics to think through how you're going to then apply the automation techniques.
Right. Thank you, Annie. One more question before we wrap for the day. Do you see organizations looking at business processes from operations-driven or data-driven point of view? Anybody that wants to go at it?
Yeah, so when I just trying to understand the question also at the same time. Yeah, I think when during the infancy of an organization, right, the business processes evolve or put in place to satisfy operational success, right? Whether it's the shipping operation or whatever operation you take, right? You're trying to make that operation successful. So it's very operations driven at that point. But as the organization scales, right, there is going to be a tipping point where there needs to be a strategic realignment or a strategic reassessment to inject best known processes, right? Because these are homegrown processes and the world has evolved, right? So, and more new processes have come up. So that needs to be brought in, right? And then, we need to churn it and then decide what is the best course for it. So I think that kind of activity of growing something, bringing, external best known methods to refine it, make it better, as long as that cycle continues. And again, it has to be data driven. Obviously, you have to look at, efficiencies, how quickly can I do this? Is there a better way to do this? All those things have to be looked at. But end of the day, I think business processes, they meet success or failure depending on whether they are able to satisfy the operational needs in a timely manner or not. So that's just my mindset on this whole thing. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Srini. I think in the interest of time, we need to close for the day. Annie, Srini, thank you so much for joining us at the panel. And thank you, Srikant, for your insights as well. And thank you, audience, for all of you in the audience for joining us today. Until the next time, it is a wrap today. Thank you, everyone. Over to you, Karis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.